Welcome to our session. The session title is Empowerment with Project-Based Language Teaching and Research. We are from Iowa State University, and one of our co-authors is from University of Chinese Academy of Sciences in China. So I'm going to more or less stick to the script so I can get it done in time. So let me begin with what's in this presentation. I will define project-based learning, short PBL, and then project-based language learning, PBLL, and discuss our systematic analysis of PBLL research, followed by implications for further research and for teachers. And I will end the presentation by sharing some useful resources for teaching language, content, and skills, and assessment of project-based language learning. So a brief definition, we define project-based learning as a series of activities that students carry out individually or in groups as they learn through planning, researching, analyzing, and synthesizing data, and reflecting on the process of conducting their projects orally and in writing, as well as comparing, contrasting, and justifying the alternatives. Projects engage students in deeper learning by using language as a resource or tool to learn more language, content, and various skills with or through technology tools in authentic contexts. As such, PBL can become project-based language learning with content-based activities composed of, again, series of tasks such as solving problems, thinking critically, making decisions, producing products, and articulating the processes and products involved in the production. So, rationale for conducting our systematic analysis of PBLL research, project-based language learning research. So we decided to conduct this analysis because in US and Europe, project-based learning and teaching and project-based teaching has become the desired general education approach for teaching 21st century skills that include integrated language and content learning and teaching, and innovative problem-solving skills used independently and collaboratively with technology. Recently, Chinese universities and schools have started requiring project-based language teaching, PBLT, as an approach to provide students with innovative critical thinking skills for a global competitive edge. As the increasing number of English language learners are expected to learn English and subject matter content such as engineering and business in English to compete on the global stage, the English language teaching profession has begun to adopt PBLT as a desirable approach to meet students' changing needs as well. So existing PBL research has shown that ESL and EFL students are not always able to see the connection between language learning and project-based learning. Research also shows that teachers need training to implement PBLT successfully. There are few studies on technology use in PBLL. There is insufficient focus on language form in PBL research. There is little experimental PBLL research, and there is need for assessment research and assessment models for PBLL, project-based language learning. Additionally, there is no systematic review of PBLL research to date. So therefore, we conducted this systematic analysis to bridge that gap. We believe our analysis and findings will help us understand what has been done, why, where, how, what has been found, and what more needs to be done to better utilize PBL for the education of ESL and EFL students. Findings of our analysis can help move language education forward to help ESL and EFL students benefit from PBL that has benefited their general education peers for a century. Our findings will also encourage more meaningful language teaching and learning within authentic subject matter contexts through language socialization, moving them beyond language acquisition model. The data sources for our analysis are 115 PBL research articles. We got to that point by initially identifying 335 potentially relevant articles published during the last 30 years by researching the following databases. They are Academic Search Complete, ERIC and MLA full texts, Linguistics and Language Behavior Abstracts, MLA International Bibliography full text, Social Sciences Dissertation Abstracts, and PsycInfo, etc. So our analysis. Our analysis focused on research foci of the studies we analyzed, technology use reported in the studies, theories informed the studies, macro contexts of the studies and micro contexts of the studies, participants, research methods, data sources, and major findings of the studies we analyzed. So with those foci, we found that is, our findings of our systematic analysis show that much has been published during the past 30 years, but unevenly. Language and content were promoted foci for the studies analyzed, but more focus on language emerged. Technology has been utilized, but probably underreported. Constructivism and experiential learning are the most mentioned theoretical frameworks or orientations that guided the studies we analyzed. Content-based language learning theories and psycholinguistics theories are the next most mentioned theoretical orientations that guided the studies. Language socialization theory is mentioned, but could be more widely utilized to inform research, PBLL research as well. We found that there are multinational collaborative PBL research that has been published. 34 countries from Australia to Vietnam are represented in the studies that we analyzed. 60% of the studies we analyzed were conducted in post-secondary contexts, and 15% of the studies were conducted in secondary contexts. Most studies were conducted qualitatively through interviews, observations, questionnaire, surveys, and reflections, pointing to the need for more quantitative experimental work. PBLL, project-based language learning, was perceived positively as enhancing language content, 21st century skills learning, and affective growth approach, of course, with some challenges. Insufficient publications of PBLL research on teachers and assessment were found. So specifically, 91% of the 115 studies we analyzed reported positive results for PBLL. 19% of the 115 studies analyzed reported positive results for PBLL with some challenges. 8% of the 115 studies analyzed reported negative results for PBLL. So even more specifically, 48% of the studies we analyzed mentioned language learning as their foci, and language learning included learning language form and language function. Content learning emerged as another major focus, but of 18% of the studies we analyzed. The contents mentioned in the studies included culture learning as content, linguistics, business, education, and other science, etc. 46% of the articles, research studies we analyzed, mentioned 21st century skills learning as their focus. And those skills included critical thinking, creativity, innovation, collaboration, communication, digital and disciplinary literacy, etc. 41% of these studies we analyzed reported affective growth as a result of learning through PBLL or PBL. They reported their students having gained increased autonomy, independent decision-making skills, engagement, and there was increased student engagement, self-awareness and other awareness, and ownership and agency, etc., as a result of impact of project-based learning. So the 19% of the articles that reported challenges of learning through PBL or the challenges of PBL mentioned students thinking of group work as time-consuming, burdensome, and taking time away from learning English and test preparation. In one study reported that students, 33% in more precisely, reported students remained demotivated and indifferent. So if they remained demotivated, probably it's not PBL's fault. It's just that PBL did not make them more motivated in this case. Teacher's facilitator role was confusing for students and teachers. Another one noted that PBL classrooms seemed noisy, and it also reported that there was inadequate language proficiency and organizational skills among students to carry out projects. Instructors hesitated to implement PBL approach due to unfriendly technologies, poor internet connection, and inadequate resources. Another one reported that reported instances where projects were not fully coordinated and monitored, and teachers lacked training. Discrepancy between teachers and students on understanding of PBL was another item that came up as a challenge for or of PBL. The 8% of the studies that reported PBL to or negatively had to do with PBL not working for them, that students lacked English language ability to carry out their projects, that there was guidance and resources were insufficient, etc. For example, yeah, as I highlighted here, PBL didn't work for most, did not hold students' attention. And not all teachers followed the instructions about target language use when there were collaborative project approach were going on in one of the studies. It also reported that students' self-evaluation of project did not work. Yeah. So others included reports that no significant effect of PBLL on standardized vocabulary measure. Students avoided English by utilizing internet translation for proficiency, or for efficiency, sorry. And of course, this could happen with any kind of approach, but the studies that on PBL reported this. And they also reported that students' linguistic knowledge and skills were lacking in the required work for speaking and writing about project work. Students resisted topic contents such as social justice issues. They resisted group work, they resisted the facilitator role of teachers, and there were the resources to carry out PBL was inadequate. There was problems with internet usage. Yeah, again, these could have been issues with any approach, but they were reported for the studies that we analyzed for PBL. Okay, so so what are the implications of our findings for further research then? So we think that even our own study can go through a further, more in-depth analysis by adding cross-case, cross-level, cross-theme, cross-theory, cross-content, etc. kind of analysis. And further research can explore if PBLL, project-based language learning, neglected to focus on content as reported in previous studies. And by doing so, did it also neglect contextual language learning and teaching as a result? We thought that our findings indicate that further research can explore if PBLT, project-based language teaching, is about language acquisition, or is it about language socialization? Of course, we have our thoughts, but others could explore to see what they find. Research can explore if and how technology is utilized for PBL and how technology is impacting teaching and learning with PBL. More PBLL research needs to be conducted at K-12 context because that context is not represented sufficiently in our analysis. Our findings also suggested a need for quantitative experimental research on PBLL, as well as on teachers' need in implementing PBLL. Research on PBLL easement needs to be conducted because, as you just heard, that PBLL can be challenging to implement. So further research can also look into why some countries are underrepresented in PBLL research publication. And yeah, it's possible that they exist in other languages because the studies that we analyzed published in English. But it'll be good to look into that to see what else is happening in non-English languages in terms of PBL work and its publications. So, implications for teachers. So our findings suggest that EFL and ESL teachers can use PBL to teach language, content, and various skills and engage their students with technology surely and more widely. EFL and ESL teachers can help assessment specialists explore PBL assessment strategies and research. Our findings also suggest that EFL and ESL teachers can carry out action research to explore their own best practices in employing PBL approach and share their findings with other professionals so that more of them learn how to implement PBL effectively. So finally, I would like to share some resources that are extremely helpful for teachers in, again, teaching language, teaching content, teaching skills, assessing projects, etc. And also some research ideas with project-based language teaching approach. The first resource is an article that I wrote with a colleague. As you see from the title of the article, it is a comprehensive article that touches upon, again, language, content, technology, and skills development through project-based language learning. And we propose a framework that help teachers visualize how a project looks like. We also have 12 lessons there as part of the unit to show teachers how a project-based language learning unit looks like. And of course, with technology integration, etc. And with that, there are a lot of ideas for research. The article itself is a nice PBL unit that can be researched to see how it works in reality. But it's a very nice unit for anybody to utilize for at least half the semester. And it includes a lot of parts and ideas and frameworks, etc. So this article is freely available on the link that I provided here. You could also find it by just Googling the article by name, by title. The next 1, 2, 3, 4. The next one is ACTFL PBL resources. This is by American Council for Teachers of Foreign Languages resources. And the next one is Association for Language Learning. Then the next one is Edutopia PBL resources. The following one is National Foreign Language Research Center PBL resources out of Hawaii. So these are all sites where you can find videos, articles, book titles, etc., that demonstrate, that explain what project-based learning is, what project-based, how project-based learning looks like, how it's been implemented, etc., by people who actually implemented project-based learning and project-based language learning in their own classes. And you can also find, especially with this Edutopia PBL resources, you can also find ideas that are not for language learning, but general project-based learning ideas, resources that can be easily modified for language teaching and learning. And I was pleasantly surprised when I saw all the resources on there. There's just tremendously useful resources. The last one, PBL Works resources, is another treasure trove. There are resources on teaching language through project-based learning, but a lot of it is about project-based learning in general. But they're just wonderful, again, ideas, frameworks, templates, the demonstration, exhibition of the work that has been done and being done, etc., all wonderful resources. So I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I hope you will enjoy these resources by checking them out. If for some reason the links don't work, of course you can Google them by just typing in the names of them. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy, again, the presentation and the resources.